Well, good morning and welcome to the Set Your School Apart seminar. My name is Wayne and I work for the founder of the Gamerize Dictionary, Adam Cardos. We're excited you're looking to make your class time count and help your students reach their full potential. You'll learn how to set your school apart in a few different ways with the Gamerize Dictionary. But today's story is really about the Fantastic Four that you'll hear from shortly, and how they've addressed different learning challenges with the Gamerize Dictionary to help their students and set their school apart. So here's something a bit different. I'm going to share our offer right now. You can take advantage of it right after the seminar or later on, but this way we can get it out of the way and dive into those difficult learning challenges. So we are offering a free trial of Gamerize Dictionary for up to 30 days. Just let us know after the seminar and we'll get you started. You may have further questions and we'll be around after the seminar to answer them. With that, I'll hand it over to the founder of the Gamerize Dictionary, Adam Cardos, to kick off the Set Your School Apart seminar.
Thanks a lot, Wayne. So I will jump in right away and kind of just give a quick overview of what the Gamerize Dictionary is, in case anybody who's watching hasn't seen any of our videos or hasn't tried it out yet. But mostly today we'll be looking at the sort of practical applications, and we'll look at some really different examples of how it's being used at different schools and have some look at some kind of interesting case studies. So, yep, this is the Gamerize Dictionary, the funnest dictionary in the world. And I'm going to just quickly start off with a video that we made that showcases a few different situations and schools where it's been used. Some of these people will actually be joining us today to talk. Let's have a quick look at this video.
We always wanted our students to get more effective practice at home, but loading them up with more homework just seemed to make them more stressed out, and they didn't seem to benefit as much as we wanted them to. Then we made the Gamerize Dictionary, and it's changed everything.
So some of the things that I really like about Gamerize Dictionary is how much it empowers the students.
So now he's fully engaged, yeah,
Cool.
after we started using Gamerize. And
once we introduced the Gamerize Dictionary, he just took off and was logging in hours and hours daily. And we were able to see the difference.
And when we do say, hey guys, we got some time, let's do Gamerize, and everybody gets super excited and pull it out as quick as possible. And
It took a few weeks, but eventually there she was. This is my sweet little tiny thing just yelling those words out so she can get rid of the monsters.
私とか近くにいて「どんなん?」とか言うんですけど、そうするとなんかこう自分の発音の間に雑音が入ったらそのパーセンテージが下がるから喋るなみたいな真剣に。
My English lessons are fun.
Keep repeating phrases that while they're playing the game, and that the parents would watch it and they will like, wow, like my kid is practicing very hard, and so the conversion rate is getting higher.
知らず知らずにすごく英語のスキルを身につけられるっていうところがすごくこう画期的なアプリだなというすごい関心をしていますいつも。はい。
To find out more about how to hybridize your curriculum, join our Facebook group where you'll have access to videos, webinars, and more.
Okay, so we'll just quickly, I just want to run over some of the main features so that you have an idea again of the big picture before we start to look at how to use it. So if you're new to the Gamerize Dictionary, Gamerize Dictionary makes use of what I'm calling deep gamification. So not a couple of little arcade games just tapping on different things, but it has a RPG aspect. It has a kingdom building thing, something like SimCity with a complex game economy. And it's something that really motivates and captivates students on a deep level. It has a spaced repetition system, something that's being commonly used in a lot of flashcard apps, but not something that's often used in apps for young learners. At the moment, we have about 12,000 words in our learner dictionary, and this is expanding at a rate of about 800 to 1,000 words a month. There are analytics that school owners or teachers can look at to monitor their students' progress. There's also, you can make customized multi-stage lessons really quickly by just choosing a list of words or sentences that you want kids to learn to spell or say. And yep, it takes a minute and you can give that straight to your students. It has AI guided voice recognition, also AI guided review. And it has 4 selectable learning aims. So you can target different aspects of language that you're trying to introduce. Let's jump in a little bit here. One of the reasons that we developed the Gamerize Dictionary, or the main reason, was it was something that we developed to suit any language learning program. It wasn't specifically for one particular curriculum or one way of teaching. It solves problems that we saw across the board, and despite what type of program for younger learners schools had. And those problems are, one, that kids don't get enough practice time. Classes tend to be short, and even if they are longer, there's just so much to learn and kids don't really have the time to kind of put in the work. Kids are, of course, brilliant language learners. However, they thrive under certain conditions, and that's having ample time and also engagement. And the last thing is that we felt that time in class, when it's limited, it's such a precious resource. And there are certain things that teachers can do or students can only do in class. And we feel that a lot of time tends to get wasted on more of the rote learning or just memorizing or learning words aspects of language, the drilling and all that kind of thing. When in fact, we think that can be achieved much more effectively by the kids themselves. And again, maximize the use of the class time. So I'm going to go through a couple of things before we get into the practical stuff, just to get you thinking about how much there is to learn and whether kids should be studying vocabulary. So the first thing here, so how much is there to learn? In learning a language, obviously there's a lot of aspects to it. So this is not something that's so easily quantifiable. It's a skill as well as knowledge that needs to be learned. Broadly speaking, we do have, of course, skills: speaking, reading, listening, and writing. Any of these can be broken down into a whole lot, so that they're not simple things that can be just picked up. Speaking, of course, could be making requests, giving a narrative, explaining something technical. Reading, understanding global meaning, making inferences from text, or just simply decoding and being able to sound out words. Listening, there's specific strategies involved with listening. We have to understand not just the written form of the word, but the sounds, and also be able to understand what's being communicated. And of course, writing, I mean, simply spelling, but it can also be producing longer pieces of text, coherent pieces of text, sentences, or meaningful different types of discourse, whether it's writing letters or essays or stories, that sort of thing. On the other side, we've got knowledge, grammar, vocabulary, or lexis, more sort of how to use words in a sentence, whether they collocate with so for example, the word homework goes with do, but the word tennis, we don't say do tennis, we say play tennis. So all of this kind of knowledge. Spelling is a huge hurdle. Obviously, there's so much we need to learn, and it's not something that kids can just pick up without any kind of dedicated study. Pronunciation as well. This is something that's a bit of knowledge. We might recognize the written form of a word, but not really know how to produce that accurately. So these kind of fall more into the knowledge category. So let's consider something easier to quantify. Let's think about vocabulary needs. So how many words do you think a young learner should learn, an English student should learn by the end of primary school? Let's see, I did make a survey, but let's just put that answer in the chat. How many words do you think you would like your learners to know by the end of elementary school? 1,500 from Wayne, 1,000. Okay. Yep, those are good estimates. And it's not obviously what it means to know a word is something that's a little bit more complex. Obviously, just being able to recognize it is one aspect, sort of a passive knowledge of a word, and then actually being able to produce it requires a little bit more effort. So again, these things, vocabulary ranges or the amount that students know is something that is a bit hard to quantify in a sense as well. It's a little bit problematic. But let's take a look at, first, let's take a look at Eiken. I'm not saying that this is the best way to estimate necessary vocabulary ranges, but in Japan, this is kind of a nice common point of reference. So looking at Eiken levels, for level 5, kids need to know 500 to 600 words. Again, more probably passively than actively. That doubles in level 4 up to 1,000, 1,200. So if the ranges that we were seeing people put in the chat there would put a student at the end of elementary school somewhere in the Eiken level 4 range. For 3, it doubles again, goes up above 2,000. Pre-2, 3,500 to 3,800. And then it, of course, just continues to increase quite rapidly to where at level 1, it's above 10,000. Now, to put these into perspective, how much, at different ages, how much do native speakers learning their own language in their own country tend to know? So to answer that, a preschooler, before they learn to read, maybe they've started school, but they haven't actually started reading books on their own, even picture books or that sort of thing. Before learning to read, a preschooler will know 3,000 to 4,000 words on average. So that's already kind of up in that pre-2 range. And obviously the preschooler is going to be able to say a lot of these words as well. They won't just be receptive. They'll have quite a high active proportion of their vocabulary. By 10 years old, on average, students would be able to use 8,000 to 10,000 words. And this depends a little bit on how much they read, how much they like reading. And then finally, an educated adult, this goes up to 25,000 or up to 40,000, again, depending on how much they read or education level. So with all this information here, again, what is a reasonable target for an elementary school student? How much do they need to learn? A lot. It's really hard to say exactly how much that is, but there is a lot to learn other than vocabulary as well. Obviously, that's just one aspect of it. So with so little time and so much to learn, I think as language teachers or school owners, we're often presented with this kind of difficult puzzle to solve, where we really want them to make progress, but we need them to accumulate a lot more knowledge and have more time to practice skills and that sort of thing. So question, again, in the chat, give me just a yes or no answer to this, or what are you, actually, no, not just a yes or no answer. What are your thoughts on this one? Should kids even study vocabulary? Do you think it's worthwhile for them to be studying vocabulary on its own, or should they be learning it exclusively through more holistic activities such as communication, reading, and that sort of thing? What do you think?
I think learning vocabulary in kind of like a context that they'll be interested in is very important, so that they can use and actually memorize. Just learning vocab might be difficult for some kids, and personally for me, it's very difficult.
Interesting. Okay. Other things in the chat here. Yes, it could be better prepare. It could better prepare them for a course. And Phil says maybe 10 to 15 minutes of a class used for vocabulary study. So yeah, just sitting and only studying vocabulary, obviously not a great idea, but it is also valuable in combination with other things is what I'm kind of getting there. Okay. Well, I've got some interesting things for you guys to think about when it comes to learning vocabulary. Now, in terms of learning, we can kind of break up learning into two very opposite ends of a spectrum. One would be rote learning, and one on the other end of the spectrum, critical thinking. So when we think about rote learning, obviously this means the ability to just memorize things and not really process it, but just sort of memorize it. On the other end, critical thinking is students' ability to practices a student's ability to problem solve, create, evaluate, really sort of think through things. Now, I think in most cases, if I ask this question, I know what answer I'm going to get, but I'll ask it anyways. Which one do you think is more important for young learners?
Critical thinking.
Critical thinking, yeah. I'm seeing in the chat there, getting students thinking is key. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. As teachers, we really tend to favor critical thinking. We think that students really need to develop the ability to think. Okay, and Phil's just come out of a tunnel on the train there, and he said critical thinking is like the holy grail of learning. Great, I love that. I feel that way too. Now, hopefully I'll be able to open your mind a little bit. I've had some information that's really changed my thinking a little bit about rote learning, in that it's actually connected to critical thinking in some kind of unexpected ways. So I want to present to you here a little bit of a puzzle that really changed my thinking about the role of rote learning. So rote learning, schools in Asia in general, Japan, Korea, China, often get criticized for overemphasizing rote learning, in that classes tend to be collective. There's a lot of drilling and just emphasis on memorizing things. Now, despite this fact, a lot of these countries top the scoreboards in terms of science and math scores, according to PISA tests, which sort of compare countries' education systems. Now, if we think about math and science, this is something that we would assume, we would associate usually with critical thinking. Obviously, higher level math or higher level science is going to involve a lot of problem solving and thinking through things, and we don't think that it's so related to rote learning. However, here's where the plot thickens. So rote learning and critical thinking, there's a point where they kind of interact. They have an effect on each other. And that is working memory. So what working memory is it's a kind of like short-term memory, but this is, you can conceptualize this as being kind of like a workbench. It's the space in your mind where you hold information when you're performing functions on it. So if you're doing a math problem, you need to remember those numbers. Perhaps you need to remember formulas and keep them on that desk in order to perform cognitive functions on the information. Now, if you're able to, if you have more rote information that's learned by rote, then it will take up less space on that workbench. In essence, freeing up more space for higher order cognitive thinking skills and different cognitive functions. To give you a little bit of an example of this, I want to do a little experiment with you guys. So I want you now to picture in your mind a pentagon. Okay, that's pretty easy. Most of you have got that. So I'm going to guess you probably came up with this. Yep. All right, let's go back to this blank space and allow you to kind of visualize and think through things a bit more. Now I'd like you to visualize a dodecahedron. Does everyone know what a dodecahedron is? Junpei waving his head no. Okay, so I'll describe what a dodecahedron is. A dodecahedron is a three-dimensional shape where each side is a pentagon of equal size. Okay, so picture that in your mind now. And here is a question for you, and you can put your answer into the chat or say it if you like. How many sides does a dodecahedron have? If you play like role-playing games with dice, or if you might be able to get the answer right away, but don't spoil it for everyone. Or if you're a preschool teacher, it seems like preschool teachers love teaching obscure shape names. Right, anyone got an answer to that? How many sides on a dodecahedron? Got 15 from Wayne. What do you think, Junpei?
18.
18. Has Phil cracked the puzzle? 20, okay. All right, so I'm gonna make this a lot easier now. This is the dodecahedron. Now that you can see it, how many sides does it have?
11? Wait.
Quite.
No.
Wayne said looks like 12. Yep. Yeah, so the answer is 12. Yep, you can see one there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then on the other side would be the same thing. So 6 times 2 is 12. So in order to try to work that out, there's a lot of working memory sort of being used. You're visualizing it, you're trying to count it in your mind, and that's taking up a lot of space. Now, the next question would be more complex, but now that you have that bit of information, a dodecahedron has 12 sides. Can you tell me now, how many sides do 12 dodecahedrons have? Sorry, 12. I've asked the question wrong. I meant to say 6, but Phil, yes, you've got that correct. If it were 12, it would be, no, you got it. You're the one who got it. I meant to say how many sides does 6 dodecahedrons have? But actually, yes, 12 have 144 sides, as Phil said. Right. That was 6, which would have 72 sides, half of that. So the point is there, you've used the bit of information that you've learned from before, that a dodecahedron has 12 sides, and you're saving space on that mental workspace. You don't need to kind of work that out first, so it makes it a lot easier. So when it comes to language learning, the same idea is also there. The more, if you've got a lot of vocabulary already learned and really, hammered in well, automatized, then it's requiring you less cognitive effort to recall those words. So when listening, if you're understanding a lot of the words, or it's taking you less time to search through that mental database for those words, it's freeing up more mental space to process other information that's coming at you. So it will lead to facility with listening. Same thing with reading. If there are less, if you're spending less effort just recalling or remembering different words, it's going to require a lot less effort. So in this way, again, going back to math in Asian schools, if there's a lot of mathematical formulas, times tables, things like that memorized, then working out more complex problems is going to be easier, because there's going to be a lot more bandwidth in the working memory in order to work those out. So the two things are related, and I would say that any program that focuses too much on only on rote learning is kind of missing the point. But if you're only focusing on critical thinking, you might actually benefit from adding more of the nuts and bolts and the memorization of the basics in order to make that happen more smoothly as well. Okay, so that concludes the more kind of theoretical part of the talk. And then the next part we're going to go into is really look at the Gamerize Dictionary and see how that helps different programs to optimize learning in their context. And we've got 4 different cases here, and all of them are quite different. So I think it'll give a nice idea of the range of how it can be used. So the first one I want to look at is using Gamerize Dictionary with graded reading. So this is something that's quite popular, and I'm also a big fan. The more kids read, the more input they get. There's a lot of information about grammar, vocabulary, and stuff like that in reading. So it's something that's really fantastic for young learners if you can get them to do a lot of it. Now, one way that we can make reading more effective when done with Gamerize Dictionary is if we either use it before reading in order to pre-teach some of the vocabulary that will make the reading happen more easily, or it can also be post-reading, where they've already seen the words in a meaningful context and they're getting more practice at learning those words. But again, reading is something that, I mean, it's not necessarily critical thinking exactly, but it is something that's requiring thinking and understanding. And in some cases, it could also involve critical thinking for more complex texts. So I want to jump in and show an example. So I've got 4 different examples of reader libraries here. Raz Kids is one that's quite common and popular in Japan. Epic, something that's designed for kids, I think in the United States, but again, a reader library that has tons of books in it. Something from Japan, Bokoko, here's a little plug for Simon Moran. This is a graded reader library that's been developed more for language learners. And I think that's coming out pretty soon as well. Well, taking a look at Raz Kids, because we actually use Raz Kids at our school, and I want to show a concrete example of how we can assign some words in line with a Raz Kids reader. So here is the reading room in Raz Kids. So Raz Kids has books leveled from AA to Z2. This is actually designed not necessarily for language learners as well. So the vocabulary level really explodes, especially as we get past kind of around G or H. So I'm going to pick a book out of the H section here. We're going to take a look at this one here, Five Brothers. Read there. All right, so the first page here, I'm going to pick just a bunch of words from the first page. We won't go through the whole book. So long ago, 5 brothers in China looked alike. First brother was strong. Second brother could fly. Third brother could hear everything. Fourth brother had an iron-hard body. Fifth brother could hold his breath, and his tears became a river. So if you've got a student who's approaching this text, what words do you think would be challenging for them that you might want them to learn before reading the text? Tears, I got from Wayne. Yeah, looked alike, definitely. Bill says. Yeah, certainly. I think China could potentially be difficult. Alike is difficult. First, second, third, possibly even. A word like everything, it's a common word, but sometimes a word that is a little bit more challenging. Students wouldn't learn that in a, in a flashcard kind of vocabulary lesson typically. Iron hard is quite difficult. That's something that you won't find in the Gamerize Dictionary. However, things like, yeah, breath, tears, these words would definitely pose a bit of a challenge for young language learners. So let's jump into the Gamerize dashboard here, and I'll show you how you can assign that word list really quickly to a class. First of all, I'm going to make a class just for myself. We'll go to new class, and we'll call it reading. Then I'll search my name here. That's me. I put just myself in this class here. Create class. Okay, got it. Next, we'll go to adventures. Create adventure. Give it a name. So let's call it 5 Bros. And then we'll choose a learning aim. Do we want them to be able to read and write the word, read and write the example sentence, hear and say, understand and say the word, or say the example sentence? Let's go with saying the word. Actually, if it's a reading lesson, maybe being able to read and write the word might be more important. But then again, for just focusing on meaning, sometimes we want the kids to be able to produce it verbally. So let's choose some of those words. We had tear, hair and tear, be careful with that. Was China. Breathe, breath. We have the example sentence, take a breath. These example sentences are all designed to be graded to the level of the word, but also to contain as many common collocations or expressions that would have it. So take a deep breath is kind of a very common phrase that would use the word breath. And here we can see them coming up there. What else did we have?
Everything.
Everything. He ate everything. There was brothers. There was like first, second. So you can choose a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 8 words in the dashboard. So here I'll just hit next and then create. And that adventure is now created. And very simply, I can add that to the class. So I'll go to adventures again, assign adventure. What was it again? Adam's reading. Adam's reading. There's my class. Select class. And then the next menu will give you the content. So there's a bit of loading time here. Adventures that we've created. 5 O's. There it is. Click on that. Next, hit assign, and that's done. So other than if you were making worksheets to achieve the same purpose for your students, it would probably take a lot more time than that. That didn't take me very long, including making the class. It took me just a couple of minutes. And now the students will get a multi-stage lesson where they can practice saying those words, and I'll show you where that ended up later on as well. There is one other function I wanted to show you. If you're worried about your students being able to decode the words, maybe they do know the meaning, but they're not really good at actually reading those out. We've added another function for that. Hold on a second here. Junpei, you probably haven't seen this yet, so this might be interesting. Okay. So I'll just give it a gibberish name. So for this function that I'm going to show you now, the best is to use the speaking aims. So probably say the word would be good. Now what we've done, we've got a little search filter up here that says search for phonics and sight words. So if we hit this, now we're not going to get entries for the dictionary that are pictures. We're going to get slides of the words. So the students will have practice just decoding or reading those words for the voice recognition. So for example, let's see, some. So for these ones, here. As you see the word, you're going to actually get this image will come up and the students will have to read that, or you can use a small example sentence with it as well. And here's the audio that goes.
Some. Can I have some, please?
There we go. So you can make sets that are strictly for practicing words. And again, using something like a reader from Raz Kids or Oxford Reading Tree or whatever reading you're using, readers you're using, you can compile sets of words like this that will help them to be able to decode those prior to actually jumping into that book. Okay, so that was a little bit of an example of how we can use it with readers. And next I want to jump in and show you an interview that I did earlier this week with Rebecca Ikawa from Redgate Reading Academy. And as you can tell by the name, literacy is something that's really important for her, and that's a core element of her curriculum. She's got a really interesting school that runs a little bit different from sort of the average English school for children. So I think there's a lot of interesting points in here to take away from. So let's have a look at my interview earlier this week with Rebecca. Thank you very much. I'm here now with Rebecca Ikawa, who is the owner and school director at Redgate Reading Academy. Yes. Rebecca, thanks a lot for taking time to chat with us.
No problem.
So I just want to start out. I've known Rebecca for it's been less than a year. It's been almost a year now, I guess. And I think you've probably found me through Facebook, and particularly about the Gamerize Dictionary.
Yeah, I think it started with Gamerize. Yes, yeah.
I remember getting a message like quite late at night from you about a year ago, and you couldn't figure out how to log in or something like that. And then after that we started chatting, and actually we've talked quite a lot over the last several months. Yes. And I think it sounds like Rebecca's got a really great school. You have tell us a little bit about your school. You've got, I think, an after-school program and English classes for kids.
Yes, well, we started out as I really wanted to help kids learn to read. I was working at universities and I saw the difference between the kids who can read and the kids who can't. And
Mhm.
that was really sad for me because it's too late to teach phonics to 18 and 19-year-olds,
Mhm.
although they were much appreciative of it. That's why I decided to start the school, so I can really start, any kid can learn to read. That's my goal.
Mm.
Yeah. So I really pushed that a lot. But of course, at the same time, I was looking for real communicative kind of things and getting the vocabulary up. And so I was very interested in the Gamerize Dictionary at first. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. So reading is obviously a very important part of your program. Obviously, hence the name. Yeah, Redgate Reading Academy.
It is, Redgate Reading Academy.
Yeah. And you have classes once a week for kids, and you also have a Gakudo program. Can you tell us a bit about the types of classes you have?
My classes are really, my friend calls it a kind of boutique school because I really focus on what that one kid needs. So I do have class time altogether, but I really focus on stations. And I usually have one or two teachers in the classroom, and we spend 10 or so minutes with each child to make sure they're getting what they need.
Mm. That's really cool. Can you tell us a little bit more about the stations? Because I think that's just a really interesting and an idea that maybe not a lot of people are using at English schools.
Yeah. Well, I usually have a phonics, a teacher who works on phonics with them, phonics or reading, depending where they are on their level. And then I have a station where they work on their own. Usually, and again, it just depends on where they are. Maybe they're just writing letters. Maybe they're doing puzzles with rhyming. Maybe they're making words. Just whatever is right for that child. And another station will probably be on I have computers there, your little iPads in the back. So they work on some kind of internet. They really love the internet thing. So either they're reading on Epic, or they're doing some kind of internet, like a reading app, for example, Ebly, or we use Reading Eggs. And so now recently we've been doing Gamerize Dictionary too. And so that's been really nice. And then they can sit in that corner and read books over there for another station. And then they have a communicative station too, where I teach them a little bit of grammar, something really simple,
That's
whatever
great.
they need.
Yeah, right. That's great. So it's very, very learner centered.
It's very learner centered. Yeah, I just have found that the kids, I tried doing groups, but they were really shy, and they get really weird about other people listening to them and how good they are. And I might have a really good reader who can't speak, and a really good speaker who can't read, but they don't see their own strengths.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah. Yep. Kids definitely behave quite differently when you get them in a big group, right? Some kids will really thrive and some less so.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So by moving them around to stations, you can kind of target specifically what they need.
They need. And also they do move. So that kind of lets a little energy up. They get up, they go somewhere. Okay, now I'm going to do this.
Right.
A little bit of them, I have to train them. Okay, you're not going to walk around and see what your buddies are doing.
Right.
So it takes a little bit of training at the beginning of the year, but
yeah. No, that little bit of autonomy, though, them coming in and just being able to choose things, I think that's
I think they really like that. And they know, oh, I'm going to do this. And I give them a little leeway, especially on the table when they're working on their own. I'm okay. You want to write cursive? Sure.
That's great.
Work on the phonics? That's good too. Whatever.
Right. Yep. No, I think autonomy is one of the really core things that students need to develop motivation. And it's something that a lot of schools that I visited, or even at some of our programs, it's a struggle sometimes to give kids the freedom, but also make sure that they stay on task and they're learning and they're not just sort of whittling away the time. So I think that's a really fantastic system.
It's been working for us, I think. And once I got the kids trained up.
Yep.
And
Training
so
is key, isn't it?
train is key.
Yeah.
So and the other class, I'm just starting it this year, is because the first graders don't train very well. So
Mhm.
I am starting a group first grade newbie class. Have never
Mhm.
done English before, and I'm hoping to use your level 1 for
Okay, great. Yeah.
Awesome Adventures. And actually, this is another little plug for you. I'm giving up my own phonics section. And I'm gonna go to Awesome Phonics.
Really?
as a-
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you
For the
very
group
much.
thing. I think it'll work really well.
When in case anyone's interested in what she was talking about there, we do have, actually I'll stop share for just a second, some of our own textbooks as well. They do go along with Gamerize Dictionary, although Gamerize Dictionary was not created for the purpose of these books, but we do have two distinct series, the Awesome Phonics Adventures. We also have Awesome Readers and the Awesome Adventures series, which uses these readers as well, all of which Rebecca has started to use as well. Sorry, I'll jump back in there. Sorry to interrupt. Did you start experimenting with it or using it at your school?
When you first started, I tried to get on. That's probably when and I was not understanding what was happening because I'm not a techie, I'm old lady. I'm just barely hanging on there with the tech thing. So, I think I started in the fall. Yeah, I think I started
Okay.
in the fall, and I kind of played around with it a little bit. And I'm looking for something else for my internet corner over there, my
Right.
computer corner. So I was looking for something for kids who are a little bit higher level. And yeah, so I just kind of started on it just with the kids who can already read. I feel pretty good with that they're reading. And I really didn't have any expectations at all of
Okay.
what was
Okay.
going to happen. I was just like, let's just try it.
Well, this is an interesting thing. So you just said that you're not techie. You're not somebody who's really savvy with technology.
You
Yet,
know that more than anybody, I'm sure.
well, I tend to disagree, to be honest. I think the difference. It's a bit of a segue, not a segue. Sorry, going off track a little bit here, but I also am fundamentally not someone who's great with technology. And people who are good with technology seem to be people who don't give up when they run into problems. If they don't know how to do something, they look it up and then they figure it out and then they learn that new thing. I just give up and ask someone else to do it. My reason for saying that is that you didn't give up and you did manage to get over those hurdles and learn how to use the portal and everything like that. Well, how was that for you? How did you get to that point?
Actually, I think the kids helped me a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, some kids, the ones who don't really do, some of the ones who don't really do well in a big group, but they really love to tell me how to do
Right.
something.
Mm-hmm.
Those kids can really help me.
Okay. Yeah. Some kids
I
are
have-
pretty clever with tablets and technology, right?
Tablets and gamers, and like they just go on there and go, this is what you do. Know that, Rebecca?
That's cool.
Yeah.
You did have a few bumps along the way, obviously with maybe, kids losing their password or different things like that. How did you manage to deal with those things?
Well, the kids losing their passwords, and I think you can see my paper up there. That's the list of everybody's names.
Okay, that's a good idea.
And then I've decided to get rid of their own personal password, and we're just going to have a classroom password.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that makes things a lot easier. I think my other problems more than passwords, and you kind of warned me a lot about this, but I didn't really take it to heart at the beginning, but I really have to get the parents on board.
Mm-hmm.
So the new parents, I've had a chance to talk to them and say, this is why I'm doing this. And, and then they agree. And they join the class and and it goes really smoothly. But the parents who I haven't really had a chance to talk with, they see it, they just hear it from their kids and they, well, they don't want them on the iPad, or
Right.
you're already doing games and you have homework to do and you have Juku. So I have to really work hard at getting the parents on board,
Right.
especially the ones who've already been here.
No, thank you actually for bringing that up. I think that's something that people watching this would be particularly interested in, and that it is, yeah, definitely. If the parents are understand the value and see how it works, then they're much more likely to support it, and then the kids are much more likely to use it, right?
Yeah. And I find that doing that one-on-one, I mean, really me talking to the parents works better than just sending a line or a, little email.
Okay.
I think that one-on-one connection with the parents, and then they understand.
Definitely. Yeah, that's been the case at our school as well. And I've heard that definitely from other schools as well. Can you give us an idea of what sort of, if you're talking to a parent and you're trying to kind of introduce it to them, what would you sort of tell them?
Well, basically vocabulary, it's really so excellent for vocabulary, and the kids want to do it. I think, as you said, the motivation is really there. And because it loops back and you go back and, you go back to that other vocabulary that you did a month ago. I think those are really good reasons to do it. I also, this area, they're really into doing the Eiken.
Right.
Eiken test, and which I don't really like so much, but but I have to do it because what people want. So I mean, that's a really good, if I tell them they need vocabulary to pass this kind of Eiken and they can get it on this Gamerize Dictionary, then they almost always start nodding their heads. And
okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess areas kind of vary a little bit on the relative importance of testing, but certainly I've definitely heard from more of the schools in closer to Tokyo that Eiken is very important, right?
Big. I have mothers of first graders telling me that they want their kid to do Eiken 3 or Eiken 2. It's really not appropriate, but okay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's certainly something that was one of the sort of thoughts behind the development of the program as well. I mean, if you go into the bundles section, I'll put an image of it for the presentation, but and you'll see that I have all the Eiken bundles there, and I'm not actually I'm not totally against Eiken, but I'm not necessarily a big fan of focusing exclusively on that, right?
Exactly.
If through that endeavor the kids are motivated to do it and they accumulate a large amount of vocabulary through the process, then great, right?
And that's great. Yeah. That's okay. I agree. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So focusing on vocabulary needs, also the spaced repetition review is something that tends to resound with the parents.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Now, so in the Gamerize Dictionary, there are different learning aims. Would you say that your students use the speech recognition, the speaking aims, or the spelling aims more?
Most of them use the speech recognition, but I do have a small group of very shy kids who don't want to do it in class. And yeah, I was really surprised. And this, I also just give them, I sometimes tell them I want you to do this, but basically I let them go to what they want to do. So I was really surprised to see, for example, a student who is very poor at spelling, actually a super good speaker, but really poor at spelling. And here she was, doing this, across the bridge with all the spelling things. And
right.
I was surprised to see her do that. But she was really, and she did, by the way, pass her Eiken level.
Oh, great.
Shocked.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I kind of was too, because this was a girl who could, barely read.
Right.
She guessed a lot. She was a great guesser.
Right.
She didn't really know the basics. And, this really helped her get over that.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
that
really surprised.
that's great. No, I guessing is an interesting point you bring up. This is going to become too long to use in the like we can do the whole seminar just on this, but this is great. But no, guessing as a reading skill is kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because it obviously being able to make educated guesses helps, but if you over rely on that particular skill, then you tend to kind of later on they slow down because they're not as good at the decoding and working out words, right? So I do think, yeah,
seen a lot of kids really fall apart in 3rd and 4th grade.
mhm,
You know, they were so good at just memorizing it, and then
right,
4th grade, boom,
yeah.
and they lose their motivation. And
Yeah, our 3-year-old is kind of convinced my mother-in-law that she can read, but she can't read. She's just memorized every book on the shelf.
Yeah.
And she's really good at relying on that. She can't actually read, but no. So the interesting thing I think also with the because in Gamerize Dictionary when you're doing something like spelling, you have to get it right in order to move on. It kind of forces you to focus on, it's not a design to kind of develop global reading skills. It really is good at getting them to kind of nail down some of those nuts and bolts, decoding CVCs or spelling words and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. But I know it's getting long, but I also just really want to say, I don't know if the parents are impressed by this or not, but I am impressed when the kids go on there and just come out with this perfect accent,
Right.
sentences, this perfect accent. It's just stunning.
It is. There's definitely an aha moment when you see it yourself, right? Yeah.
Whoa.
Cool. That's awesome, right?
That's pretty fun. Yeah. I hope the parents see that at home and go, this is working.
Yeah, no, I think there are parents that are more kind of hands-on and parents that are really quite hands-off. So those are the ones that maybe do need a little bit more just information or guidance, I guess.
Yeah, I'm thinking about making a little, start doing little videos of the kids when they do something, on Gamerize, and send it to the parents if they're not seeing at home,
Right. We are also going to be including, this is a good point, timing to mention it, the analytics reports to parents. So the parents will get an email that tells them kind of how many words they've studied, and maybe hopefully we'll give some other patterns, like these are some words that they're learning and that sort of thing.
Okay. That sounds interesting. Good.
About that a little bit. There is one feature that's coming up really soon as well. In the dashboard, at the moment, we've made it so the word slides. So
cool. Very cool.
Hopefully that will be useful. Yeah. You use, reading eggs and Epic. You mentioned a few different reading.
Yes, I use those. That's available for my students over there on their computer station. Yeah.
I think I'll skip a little bit ahead because we've kind of talked about that before and we're a bit behind. We'll put the content for Oxford Read.
I think I could do it pretty easily.
So do you teach, if you're doing an Oxford Reading Tree reader with a lower level student, would you practice certain words before you have them read it, or?
Yes, I make sure that they can decode it first. And also, of course, where's my thing? I don't have one right here, but the sight words are always the problem. And I have a little thing that I've made up. This is it's based on the heart words. Maybe a lot of people who teach reading know about the heart words, but I changed it because my kids didn't really understand the idea of learn by heart. So instead I say rule breakers. So they write the word sad, and then they break up with the grapheme and I say is what letter, and they'll write an S, and the D is what letter, they write a D, and then the S sound is going to be this AI, which they've already learned is A, but now we're going to make it say eh. And then they put it in jail.
That's cool.
So the boys can really get crazy about this. How long should it be in jail for this kind of?
You discussed sentencing for the
Yes,
rule breaker
yes, we
word.
discussed sentencing. So said is pretty bad. Could is always like in there for a million years, you know?
Right. Bad grapheme.
Yeah. So yeah, I do this first, and then you know, depending what kind of words coming up with the reader.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think that's in the way I sort of look at language learning, I think there's always a balance between the kind of nuts and bolts. They really do need to memorize or just learn some basic information, but they also need a chance to kind of use that. And reading is a great example of that, right? Where they'll actually see those words attached to a meaningful context.
Yes.
But a balance is great for sure. Yep, that's definitely sort of the thinking behind Gamerize Dictionary as well. We don't think of it as a total way of teaching a language. I don't think anyone would become fluent just using that, but it supports the more meaningful things. And I hope that a lot of schools like yours can give a lot of kind of meaningful, use that class time for things that are interesting and really inspire kids and get them kind of thinking and stuff like that as well, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about, for example, a class where you've got one student that's been using Gamerize consistently and okay. All right, I'm going to stop that there for a second. But so there, I think Rebecca, again, a great teacher for teaching literacy and phonics. And I thought it was really interesting that her whole stations that she uses at the school are really learner-centered approach, as well as that heart word worksheets that she uses. But yeah, she's made a great use of Gamerize Dictionary as well within those stations and combining it with other things that she does at the school. So I thought that was a great thing to share with you guys. So I'm going to move on and look at a few other areas, so that we're going to move on from reading now. And let's look at, we haven't really had much of a chance to kind of look at the app itself yet, but I want to show you a bit of how Gamerize can be used with standard course books. And I don't know what a standard course book is, but yeah, I mean, we've got some of these in the app. For example, Let's Go, Think, Read, and Write, New Finding Out, My First Grammar. So these books can be used in the app. Students can use it to pre-study before their classes. But of course, if the book that you're using is not on the bookshelf in Gamerize Dictionary, it doesn't mean that you can't still do it. You can. We've got schools using lots of different books, and they'll customize the content and put it in along the lines of their course. Here's a bit of a question for you. I want to kind of get people thinking again. I hope I haven't lost everyone in that the interview section. Everyone sort of settled into the listening mode. But if you're actually, who there uses a course book? Phil or Junpei, or I see that we have one more as well.
I do.
You do use course book? Yep. What course book do you use?
We use Finding Out series for
series. Yeah. Fantastic book series, and very popular also in the industry. I don't know if Phil's still there as well. Okay, well, so the usage of course books is of course very common, and they solve a lot of problems. Obviously, you have a coherent course that's laid out. You don't need to sort of think before every lesson, where's the goal, where are we going with this? And it has so many things that you can follow that you don't need to sort of reinvent the wheel for every lesson. So I think course books are great. Now, question is, if your let's think about a textbook like, for example, Let's Go. If your learners are pre-studying the content, and they're coming to class and they already know the vocabulary and they already know the grammar pattern and they can use it well, what do you do with your class time at that point?
Do speaking practice.
Jump right into the speaking, yeah? Yep, definitely more time for speaking and communicating. Anything else there, Wayne?
Yeah, I think Just really anything that only a teacher can do. Like if they've already learned those words and they understand them, now it's time to apply, just as Jinpei-san said. Like, so that can be a lot of different things. Really.
Yeah, communication activities, mixing skills, whether it's including reading and talking or that kind of thing, problem solving activities.
Even in songs too, like if they know some of the words or the keywords, it gives them confidence, like to keep on trying the next part or the next, because they
That's
know
a good point. Yeah, definitely. Songs, I mean, students often can learn a song, but when you actually hear them singing by themselves, if you hone in, you'll hear that they're kind of mumbling. They've got the tune and they've got some of the key features of the sounds, but they're not really separated into words and they're not really understanding what they're saying. So yeah, certainly could support something like that as well. Okay, I do want to show a couple of examples of, hold on, I'll need to open up Gamerize here. We'll jump into the app there and I'm going to show how an adventure with a course book actually looks. And we'll take a couple little looks at other things while we're in there. Okay, so here we are. So let's just jump in. Right, so in other sessions, I've talked more about this kingdom aspect, so I'm not going to really focus on that today. We'll just jump right into the adventure menu down here. First tab is the assignments from the teacher. So earlier I made and assigned an adventure called 5 Bros. So that's appeared right at the top of my assignments from the teacher. At the top here, we've got in progress. So I've actually started an adventure from Let's Go in order to be able to show that to you. Let's take a quick look at the bundles menu. Rebecca mentioned that all of the Eiken content was in there. Again, this is not really an app made specifically for Eiken. I've tried to include as much content as possible that students would be motivated to explore and to use. And as obviously Eiken is something that's quite popular or common in Japan, we do have that on the shelf so students can, if they know about what level they are, they might independently study for those tests through these bundles. Here's some other content ones. We've got some phonics, awesome adventure series, which Rebecca mentioned as well, our books from AAS Press, Cambridge Young Learners, and there's Let's Go one. Right, so actually I'm going to go back out and just jump from the in progress menu here. So really quickly, you can take a look at the camp here. And here's where you can see what it is you're studying. This adventure is on the say the sentence mode. So actually the students would be studying what's on this side. You can check the audio by clicking here.
I want a milkshake.
In some cases, you can look at translations. This bundle does have translations. New Finding Out, for example, doesn't, by request of the author. Question from Phil there. Do you have pre-2? Yes, we do. We've got everything up to 2 now. Pre-2 and 2 are in progress. We're adding probably about 150 words per month to those bundles. And at the moment, we've probably got several hundred. So those are continuing to expand. Looking at, again, this adventure from Let's Go. Whoops, not this one. Ooh, let's go back out here. Hold on. So every adventure is 4 games. This one is in progress. I'm actually on the 4th game, but now we can go back and take a look at the other ones. The first activity,
I want a milkshake,
is going to be a receptive activity where we just listen and identify.
I want a cookie. I want a soda.
For example, again, we can check the Japanese. We can also switch kanji and hiragana in case your students are young and they can't read that. For something like Let's Go, you probably don't need the translations. It's better to leave it off because the image communicates the more simple meanings. However, when we do get into Eiken, for example, level 2 or pre-2, with where there are more complex sentences or ideas, taking a peek at the Japanese to get the full meaning is often quite helpful. Second game in the sequence is again another receptive
I want
one.
a milkshake. I want a banana.
Right, so same idea, but just change into another context for variety. And it's really snappy and fun. If you think about how many repetitions the kids would get if they play this at a good pace, it's faster than if you're playing, again, a group game in a class. They'll get so many repetitions in. By the third game,
I want a milkshake.
we're now using the voice recognition, and this game is a listen and repeat drill. So before their first couple, they're just focusing on the meaning and associating the sound to the meaning. The third one, they're actually getting a chance to work on the pronunciation and get their mouth around the sounds without the added burden of having to recall it. What was this one again? I want a milkshake. There you go. And the voice recognition will give you a score breakdown of pronunciation for each word. Basically, anything over 80 is kind of like a perfect score. It's very difficult to get 100% there. The students can also compare their pronunciation. I want a milkshake to the correct answer.
I want a milkshake.
So if they have a word that's consistently low or whatever and they want to compare it, they can work on their pronunciation that way.
I want a sandwich.
So jumping out of this one, the fourth game is the RPG battle. And this is really the test. This is where they will have to have remembered the word, recall it, and produce it for the voice recognition. So at this point, they should remember, I want a cookie. Here you go. So we would battle with these monsters with these questions, and that is the end of one adventure. They should have had enough practice with that at that point. Anytime between the games, if they get stuck, they can jump back into that camp to make sure that they've understood it. The last thing, one thing that Rebecca mentioned also that she said parents were particularly interested in was the review. So we do have a spaced repetition system and also an AI guided review. So these monsters that appear on the map, these are the review sessions. So if you've completed an adventure, you need to do it again a couple days later, a week later, for example. So here we go. There's another example of a review battle. Okay. Let's jump out of this and go back to the slides here. Okay, so that's a look at different course books. I would like to show a couple videos if we have time as well at how the content for New Finding Out and also Think, Read, and Write has been adapted. We've got a few different types of adventures, ones that we've used individual phoneme recognition or gap fill spelling for really low level learners. In fact, maybe I will show that now really quickly because I think that's quite useful. Hold on a second here. Hold up. All right, here's an example of Think, Read, Write.
Shh, ship, shh.
Oops. So if anyone's used this one practices the SH sound with different words, and this is an exercise taken kind of straight out of the book.
Shh, ship, shh, shh, fish, shh, shh, ship, shh. Brush, shh, 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 fish, shh.
That's my daughter, she's 3.
Brush, shh, shh.
Brush. Fish.
There you have it. And another one, let's take a look at an adaptation for New Finding Out. Junpei, you might not have seen this yet. This is in the bundles that are being put together now. Hold on a second. Screen share. So this is with the typing mode, but the students only need to spell one letter. So this is for really low level students at the beginning of the course. There you go. So I think that's really useful for getting the students familiarized also with a keyboard. You see it had that kind of scaffolded keyboard where only some keys were lit up. So if they're only looking for A and they're gradually learning that way, they'll become quite good at typing with a bit of time. All right. Next, I wanted to have a little bit of a look at test prep. We're a little bit behind, and I want to make sure that I have time to talk with Junpei at the end here. So I'll talk about that a little bit. Wayne, what do you think would be the best use of time here? Do you think I should show the interview with Malcolm? Self-introduction from you, and tell us a little bit about what you do with Cambridge and with your school as well.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for having me here. So yeah, I've been in Japan a very long time. I am based in Okayama, and we have got two schools. One is ISOE, Okayama International School of English, which has an international preschool, afternoon English programs for kindy, primary, and high school. And then we have OIP, Okayama International Preschool, which is just an international preschool. And that was a purpose-built building we put up 2 years ago. So that's quite a new venture. The company also runs the Cambridge Center for, primarily we're working in the west of Japan, so from Kansai down through Okayama to northern Kyushu. And we generally provide exam services to schools and language schools, mainly in the young learners, so up to primary. We do high schools as well, but that's not, that's a bit of a niche for what we're doing.
I met you, Malcolm, about probably 8 or 9 years ago, as we started to have the young learner, Cambridge young learner exams at our school in Hyogo. And yeah, we've been running it every year since then. So that's something. I think if you are interested in exams, I think the young learner exams, it's lesser known in Japan, but it's a really quality exam. And it's, I think my impression of YLE is that it's something that really is well-rounded and helps to raise the overall level of your children's English or your students' English. Is that right? You've got an online preparation course for the Cambridge Young Learner exams. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. So we run exams in Okayama. Just give Okayama as an example. Open exams twice a year for the young learners exams. And a lot of the students had been taking the exams before, and the parents had gotten used to, the idea this is their long journey of learning English. And they wanted to have these milestones. The parents still were coming to us wanting to take the tests. So we moved some preparation courses online, initially in an experiment to see how it would work. And yeah, it turned out to be quite successful. This was only to complement, obviously, what students were doing either at our language school or in their own language school. So it was more of a sort of a special course to prepare for a specific exam they would be taking. But it kind of evolved from there, and now we've developed 2-year courses that can be taken pretty much anywhere. So we have students in Tokyo, in Okayama, and pretty much any other place in Japan. And these are 50-minute lessons once a week. And it's actually a jump in, jump out, I call it. So the students can actually join at any week of the year And as long as they stay 2 years, they will be able to complete the actual course. We have parents across Japan who are interested in Cambridge exams, but they might not have a language school that supports that. So if any of you out there would be willing to perhaps be on a list for students who would like to come to your school and maybe have support, not necessarily Cambridge courses, but would be happy to accept such students, please let me know. We get questions about schools in different places. It'd be great to refer students to these schools as well. And Gamerize we found to work very, very well, where we can pre-assign vocabulary to be pre-studied and use it in all kinds of ways to help the students in their learning journey. I think it's a really strong product, very, very helpful and supportive of the students, and they love it. So, and the feedback that teachers and parents can get from it is really, really good as well. So the great thing is you can actually assign the vocab adventures for different exams. And that's not just Cambridge YLE. There's Eiken in there as well, and various other options for school teachers that are using different textbooks, for example.
So you're selling kind of a package. It's not just a sort of standalone lesson that the students jump in for, right? You're offering a few different things. You mentioned support to the parents, also digital resources like Gamerize Dictionary. Tell us a bit about the whole package. Okay,
so the thing is, it's kind of important that they are going to a school, because if they are standalone and they're not taking on the language lessons, it can be quite difficult. So we also work with schools, and like as I've already said, we have been asked to introduce schools. So it's nice to have to build up sort of a library of schools around Japan that would be happy to take and support such students. But also if you have any students that wish to take the exams and prepare for the exams, that sort of works as well, because we can do that for say schools who are not prepared or geared up to do that kind of thing.
Great, yeah. So it really is something that you've designed to go along with other programs. So if someone has a school there, they might not be able to get enough students together to make a YLE class by itself, but students at that school could join the online as sort of an extra add-on at that school.
Exactly. Well. So we have some schools that have actually just wanted to also run a YLE course specifically, but again didn't have the teachers or didn't have the time, and online format does provide a lot of flexibility there. So they've asked us to actually create a class just for their students, with which we have a financial package that is beneficial to all. So our teachers would actually run an online session just for a particular school's students. That's also very possible. Yeah.
So I wanted to sort of swing back to Gamerize Dictionary. You did mention that it's a good way for students to kind of pre-study vocabulary or language that they'll then use in different ways in the lessons. Give us an idea of what kind of sort of activities you might do that would allow them to practice using language in your online course.
Okay, so within, even if you look at starters level, which is the first level of Cambridge, as we first go into the lessons, there's a lot of written text that has to be read and a lot of words that have to be spelled. So a lot of our students will be able to say the words, they might be able to read the words, but anything that gives them opportunity to practice those words, the spelling and the reading, in as many ways as possible, in as a fun way as possible, is definitely what we're looking for. Giving them the opportunity to meet those words in various contexts in a fun way is really, really important. So that's one way that Gamerize, the whole theory of Gamerize, is very, very useful to us in what we're doing. We only have once a week, which I think is not unusual. A lot of kids, attend English lessons once a week, and in that context, it's very, very hard when you're especially working with literacy. So anything that helps the student to enjoy this journey, and is definitely a plus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in my experience, the quicker that they can move forward, the quicker that they progress, the more they enjoy it as well, right? I mean, if they're only getting an hour a week and they're not really putting in any work at home, it can kind of be a slow, more grueling journey, and they don't really get that sort of lift-off point fast enough.
Sure. It's a lesson, and we've set vocabulary the week before, and they've come there. It's not just, it's also their confidence. The whole lesson can move a lot smoother, and we're able to keep a track of this. So there's problems kids haven't understood, haven't finished adventures we've just been talking about. It also gives us the ability, the teacher and the parent, to work around what's going wrong. So we, again, making sure that we can support the students to get to the goals.
Yeah, you mentioned confidence. That's a theme that seems to be coming up quite a lot when I talk to different school owners, and for us as well. Especially on an online course, if some of my difficulties with online classes is if a student hasn't pre-studied or doesn't know the material, they can get quiet and they can kind of do a little bit of this kind of thinking behind the camera, and it's a bit hard to kind of bring them out of their shell.
Well, the difference is day and night. If they don't know a word, or if there's something they don't know, they're exactly going to do that. They're going to shy away. If they know it, they're going to blurt it out. So it's complete day and night, really.
I want to talk a little bit about kind of the how you're selling Gamerize Dictionary as a part of your course. So you're offering what is included in the course fees, and if you don't mind, actually, what can you talk about what those fees are?
We have 4 levels. Okay, so there's 3 levels of exams. There are starters, which is pre-A1. There's movers, which is A1, and then there is flyers, which is A2 on the CFR. Now, for starters, we have divided it into 2 one-year courses. One is for complete beginners, and one is for false beginners. So a typical, in the last 2 months, kids that have been coming to us have generally needed to start from the beginning. So it's a 2-year course. And the first year of that course is working on the basics, a lot of phonics, and then after 1 year it starts we use actually a textbook, which is the Fun for Starters, the Fun for Movers, and the Fun for Flyers series from Cambridge University Press. Now those books fit in with what it is we're trying to do. There's an online component, so the kids are working offline. And it works quite well, but there's a 1-year entry. So it's basically 2 years for starters, 2 years for movers, and 2 years for flyers. So it's a 6-year course in all, if the student was to go through the entire system. Our youngest students are 5 and 6, generally speaking, first year of primary school, and our oldest students are in first year of junior high, actually, as well. So it's not specific to primary school kids. We get some younger kids, we get a few older kids as well. And so as I said, these are set courses. So the kids are taking, they're jumping in, say in April or May, and they're doing a 2-year stint. Now, what's included? Gamerize subscription is included in this. The actual test fee at the point when they're ready to take a Cambridge exam is also included. And textbooks, as I just mentioned, the Fun for Starters, Fun for Movers. And we have a range of other books, physical books, graded readers and other stuff available as an option. We encourage them to read as much as possible. And there's some online options as well that we offer, again, as an option if they wish to read. So they get physical books or actually online reading programs as well. And again, it does start to add up. It's a lot of stuff, but we explain how it can be used, and we try to keep as much as possible as an option. So
yeah, that's quite a lot of value that you offer. So it's not really just just turn up for your lesson. It's a whole package of resources, and really that's what they need to be using in order to meet the course objectives, right? Which is ultimately passing those exams.
Yeah, that's right.
Great. Okay. And last question here I want to ask is what sort of reactions have you got from parents so far?
Been very positive. Yeah. I think when people think dictionary, they're thinking something else. But once they've seen their kids get into it, there's been a lot of comments like don't want to stop, and so I think generally speaking, from the parents' view, it's been very, very positive, and from the students' view, it's been very, very positive, and that means increased times and increased learning outcomes. So all very beneficial to everybody.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, time is definitely one of the our market is definitely kind of other countries. I think it's a bit different, but in Japan, the sort of 1 hour a week for kids to learn English has become kind of a standard. It's what everyone thinks English looks like. But yeah, and certainly in other countries, language courses would often be much longer. 4 hours a week or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, what you've done is you've managed to create the option or the ability for kids to be learning on a daily basis without the parents having to stress too much about making the time available to be watching them the whole time. So
right.
What you've got here is a very good solution to an age-old problem, and the kids love it. The kids, are on an adventure and having fun, so it's a win-win.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the idea for sure. I think that the fact that they get immediate feedback while they're doing it as well is important. I mean, in a lot of cases, homework can be not only a burden to the student, but a burden to parents if they feel that they need to kind of be watching and helping them. And then, parents are not teachers, so sometimes they overhelp. They do it for the students. They don't get a chance to kind of redo it if they've made a mistake. So yeah, it's kind of like, in a sense, it's kind of like a tutor that doesn't look like a tutor because it will give the corrections when it's needed, right?
Yeah, and as we just discussed, we can identify, or prior to this meeting, we were discussing one of my students, how we can recognize issues that are coming up through the way that the student has been using it, and then we can take action on sort of correcting potential problems. So yeah, it's a really, really good tool.
Great, thank you very much. So we'll stop right there for today. So thanks a lot for taking the time to chat with me, and yeah, we'll be in touch. And if anyone's interested again in perhaps running Cambridge Young Learner exams or preparation courses for it online with Malcolm's online school, please get in touch, and we'll set that up.
Right.
Another school, it's our own, and I'll try to go through this one pretty quickly, but a little question for you. What do you think the Gamerize Dictionary has to do with creating a robotic animal zoo and giving a tour to foreign dignitaries? Maybe that's a bit of a mouthful of a question. So the answer to that question is CLIL. So CLIL is something that I specialize in, and it's something that I'm quite passionate about. And I want to tell you about a couple of ways that we've used the Gamerize Dictionary to make our CLIL programs work better. So this robotic animal zoo, this is something that relates to an event that we ran with a robotics school called ProgLab. We ran an event, a half-day programming and English event at an elementary school. And in the event, the students went on a treasure hunt where they had to read clues in English and find robot parts. And finally, they put together and programmed different animals and made a tour and programmed a car that would go around the zoo, all talking together in English. And finally, they gave a tour of their robot animal zoo to the school principal, and some of us teachers were posing as foreign dignitaries. So in order to do this event, they needed vocabulary related to problem solving, phrases for talking together, programming related vocabulary. They also needed to be able to read certain words for the treasure hunt clues. So the way we used Gamerize Dictionary for this was 3 weeks prior to the event, we assigned a list of about 50 words and phrases. which the students studied and reviewed up until the event. And honestly, it was like a miracle when the kids came in. And it's not an international school or anything like that. These are average elementary school students, but they spoke entirely in English, talked together, achieved all of the things, gave a tour of the zoo in English, because they had all of that vocabulary knowledge beforehand. Now, I can't show a video of that event because that was not at our school, but I do have a video that I can show you of a little CLIL STEAM thing that we have done at our school. And I think this is kind of a nice example. These kids are not international school grads. They've probably studied English for a year or two. And I was experimenting with a STEAM CLIL course that doesn't really require a teacher. So what you're going to see here is they were given a video which explains a little bit about a simple machine, in this case, a lever. And then the video gave instructions on how to make it. They make the lever, then they watch another video that models how to talk about the lever, explain how it works and the parts. Then they study the language on Gamerize Dictionary, and then they create their own video where they're explaining how a lever works. And you can really get an idea of how Gamerize Dictionary is supporting this task, and how with that, they didn't really need, I was kind of hovering around a little bit, but I was trying to do as little as possible, and practically did nothing. So let's have a look at this video. So that was them just watching the setup video about how to make the lever and what they're making. Here they make the lever using cardboard, tape, and foam. And then they study the words on Gamerize Dictionary.
This side goes up.
This side goes up.
Is the fulcrum. This
Watching
is the lever.
the model of how to explain their lever.
These are the supports. This is the fulcrum.
So what they're doing now is quite interesting. They're just they've got the camp scene of the Gamerize Dictionary open, and they're flipping through the flashcards and trying to identify it on the lever. And if they get stuck, they can just check the audio to remember how the words sound.
Base.
Push.
Push this side down.
Push this side down.
This side goes up.
This side go up. This side go up.
Yeah, you ready?
Lever. This is supported. This side push, this side down. This side push, this side up.
You did it! Yeah. Okay. So I mean that's I think a good example of how kids can do a little bit of rote learning or a little bit of memorization of language for the purpose of doing something that requires critical thinking and a little bit more sort of context and global understanding. Yeah, so this is something that we frequently do at our school. We do have a lot of CLIL courses, some of them that are quite advanced. And this typically, if you look at CLIL methodology, one of the things that needs to be addressed is language. Students need to have phrases that they can use to talk together. They need to know content-specific language. Like in this task, even though they're not super high-level students, they needed the word fulcrum in order to say it. So obviously this is, if they don't know the word fulcrum, it's going to be a little bit hard to explain what it is without kind of making up some new simplified version of it. So that's one way that can be used. All right, we're almost, I think we're going to talk to Junpei next. Before we get into that, does anyone have any questions for me about, particularly about the CLIL part, because that's sort of my strength. Looks like Phil might be writing something, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay. In the meantime, I'll ask a quick question. How do you think through like planning those events? Like, for example, the zoo activity, like, can you give us like just a quick overview of like what should go into that, and then how you're thinking about the Gamerize Dictionary and how you're going to leverage it?
Oh, that's a big question. Really quick, you'd probably you'd start from the end of the lesson. You'd look at what your objective or your final task is going to look like. And then from that, you'd break down what are the key words that the students need in order to be able to understand the content or express it. And also analyze the kinds of interaction patterns that you're going to want to have in the CLIL activities, in the tasks, and give the students specifically the tools for that. For example, we had things like, let's make it turn right here, or it should go forward 3 spaces, or and no, that's a good idea, or no, I don't think so, only 2, or those kinds of, you can kind of work through what you think the kids are going to need in order to achieve it. And at least the phrases that they'll learn on Gamerize Dictionary will give them an entry point. And then you'll get this kind of organic thing where the students are struggling, using words they know, not using the words you've given them correctly, and you can kind of give feedback and guidance. But what they won't do is sit there and stare, which is what they would do if they did not have any of the vocabulary or the language needed to do it. Sorry, Phil has asked, right. CLIL, right, so CLIL is Content and Language Integrated Learning. So it's a methodology that, fuses language learning and content. It's something that's a little bit trendy and you sometimes see in textbooks, but real CLIL that does tasks that really make students think and work out, do problem solving, that kind of thing, is a little bit harder to find. But yeah, something that I'm really passionate about. I'd love to tell you about it more if ever you're interested. Okay, so let's talk with Junpei then now. Let me do a little introduction. Now we're going to have a chance to talk with Junpei Tamura, who is the owner and school director of Nico Kids English, and also has a marketing and school consulting business. And I really look up to Junpei in his knowledge and his ability with digital marketing and copywriting is just something that's amazing. And he's helped us a lot in the last year, and he's helped a lot of people, I think, in the industry over the years. So thanks a lot for taking the time to talk with us, Junpei.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
And Wayne-san.
All right, so let's see, what's a good question to kick off with here? We've kind of looked at how it can be used in a couple of different situations. Can you tell me, as a sort of starting question, when did you find out about Gamerize Dictionary, and what made you decide to incorporate it into your school curriculum?
I think it was last year or 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I cannot really remember, but one of my staff members went to your workshop, and then she found out about Gamerize Dictionary, and then in the beginning, I actually wasn't very interested, but she was very interested, so I just let her take the read. Then, so we decided to towards deciding to use it. But once I visited you at your school in Nishinomiya, and you talk about, you went to
Vietnam and saw some students speaking very fluently in English at a school, then you wanted to do something for your students and kids in Japan. So I thought like felt passionate about you're passionate about teaching and education. So I was like, okay, so more than the product, I kind of I want to work with you and support Gamerize Dictionary, that kind of thing. Yeah. So that's kind of like a big thing for me to decide to use it.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. And yeah, let's see. So yeah, I remember that that was when we first kind of presented about Gamerize Dictionary before it was really released. And in fact, I think interestingly, you were in that presentation, but you had your camera off and didn't respond when I asked you questions. So it's kind of fun that here you are actually participating in one of these now. Okay, so tell us a little bit about kind of feedback that you've got from students and parents. Like what's a good story about kind of a real success story with Gamerize Dictionary?
Sure. One student in Tokyo, he is, I think, grade 3, and the mother, before he started to come to our school, the mother was very worried about him, kind of like giving up on, whatever he started, and get bored of it really quickly. So he was worried about, learning English will be something like that. But and he didn't really like learning. But once he started to study with us and start to use Gamerize Dictionary, and then it's kind of natural for grade 3, elementary school kid boy start to get into a game, and he really started to learn a lot of vocabularies and the phrases, and start to practice speaking using the voice recognition feature. And then he was able to he improved a lot, and even in class. So that gave him a lot of confidence as a English learner. So the mother was really surprised, and she was thankful for that. Yeah. Great. So
yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned the confidence. This is sort of the theme that comes up almost every time when I talk to different school owners or teachers that are using it. It's really the student that was a bit shy or wasn't really engaged, really seeing them transform and become more confident after kind of pre-studying. That's really been the goosebumps moments for me, for sure. I've had a few students in my classes that have just kind of completely done a 180. And I wonder why that is. What is it specifically that makes them more confident after using that rather than before, when they didn't have that support?
It's because on Gamerize Dictionary, they can learn what, for example, we're using finding out series, so they can learn finding out series contents on Gamerize Dictionary. So they can use what they learn on the app in class, and then they can practice what they learn in class at home. So yeah. So it's like a great combination of home study, and in-class study. So that gives them capability of using what they learned and what they know in class. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. In your case, do you tend to pre-assign the work? Do they study the words and stuff before they take the class, or is it after, or is it a bit of both?
Yeah, it's usually after. Yeah, but so I think from my understanding, it's a bit too difficult for learners to study something new by themselves.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think it kind of in our case we do a bit of both, but it depends on the type of lesson. So something like in New Finding Out, if it's like a phonics lesson and they haven't had the letter introduced yet, then it does make sense to kind of do it after as more practice.
Right.
Whereas if it's vocabulary, I think that's generally speaking, that's conveyed by the picture or whatever, and they can learn that ahead of time, right?
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. So Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, something I think about the sort of validation of it, because they're not in front of other people and kind of worried about what other people are going to say. They have that chance to kind of make mistakes and try it again on their own and get a score. So that can be quite a boost, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, let me see as well. So I think one of the things that would be really useful to hear from you, for people that are watching this or interested in trying out Gamerize Dictionary, how have you since obviously marketing is something that you're very knowledgeable about and you do quite well, how have you used Gamerize Dictionary in your marketing?
One example is that we call our class as Dorakue Eikaiwa. So Dorakue is like a really famous Japanese video game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, a lot of parents grew up with it. So when they see like a Dorakue, that word, then it's very like intriguing and appealing for them. The Dorakue Eikaiwa, what is it? Then, it's really, trigger their interest. So that's one good thing to use. And I think I've got a picture of kind of like a banner that we have.
Yes, that is Dragon Quest. Yeah. Oh, there it is. Oh. Right. There's a perfect distance sort of. There you go, right there. Okay. Dorakue Shiki Eikaiwa. Nice. So that's on your webpage.
Yeah, that's on our webpage. Yeah. So it's just one way. It's one way to differentiate your school from others. And now we're based in Tokyo, and it's kind of there's so many competitions and competitors, so it's difficult to differentiate yourself, your school.
Right.
But
right.
Yeah, I think using Game Dictionary and promoting it like this is going pretty successfully.
Yeah. Okay. So you did just open a couple of schools in Tokyo just this last year, right?
Last November.
Yeah. And it was a topic that kind of came up in my chat with Rebecca, was about how students or parents in that area really care a lot about Eiken. Do you find that compared to Tokushima, the students in Tokyo care more about Eiken?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. So we get a lot of requests, and then a lot of parents are aware of getting Eiken and stuff. So when I explain how Gamerize Dictionary has Eiken components as well, then they can learn a vocabulary from Eiken in a very fun way. Then they go like, hey, that's really good, like that. Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, because Eiken's so in demand in the Tokyo area, have you changed your courses at all, or
the contents of our classes? No, not really. So at the moment we don't have Eiken courses, but eventually we will start. But at the moment we don't have any Eiken courses, but in trial lessons I can tell them, like, we have something like this, so that if you want, you can study even at home and prepare for it.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think that's something that we didn't sort of plan for from the beginning, but it's definitely been a useful thing at our school as well. We do actually have some Eiken classes, but we're kind of trying to fight against having too much emphasis on that. We don't want, we're more interested in students having a motivating, kind of holistic, full experience with English, rather than kind of focusing too much on the tests and the results. So it is a really kind of a nice, when the parents do come in and say like, okay, so when is my student going to pass Eiken level 3? You can just say, well, there's about 2,000 words that they need to learn for that. So step one, why don't you, get them using Gamerize Dictionary for, going through those bundles, right?
Right. Yeah. And, it's pretty much, Eiken and the other tests are pretty much all about remembering vocabularies. Of course, you have to know grammar, but, if you remember enough vocab and phrases, then there's a high chance that you can pass, especially, lower grades of test, like Eiken.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think particularly for kids, they might have great listening skills. They might be pretty, quite good at reading, but just that vocabulary hurdle is going to be something that basically they just need to know the words in order to pass.
Right. Yeah.
Almost every kid that we've ever had that studies vocabulary and does Eiken will get nearly 100% on the listening section at least. But yeah, it's usually the words is the big barrier.
Yeah.
Okay, and I remember you telling me also that you have used Gamerize Dictionary in your trial lesson counseling. Actually, not just that aspect. Can you give us, I think everybody listening will be really interested to hear about, counseling and how people handle trial lessons at different schools. Can you tell us a bit about how you run a trial lesson and counseling?
Yeah, of course. So in our trial lesson, it's usually done one-on-one, and we don't invite new students into our existing classes. We usually have like trial lessons, not trial students in existing classes. So it's usually one-to-one. And then we do 30 minutes of lesson. Then after that, we do Q&A session for 30 minutes. So usually about an hour. Then during the Q&A session, usually the teacher is playing with the kid. Then so during that time, the teachers let the students play the Gamerize Dictionary. Then the students get to try it, and when the parents and our Japanese staff member talking, they hear their kid is trying to say, like, for example, it's an apple, that kind of
right.
Yeah, actually like practicing and saying the words, and since it has like a recognition, voice recognition feature, and sometimes you fail and you have to try many times, right?
Right.
Yeah. Then so they get very impressed that, like, wow, my kid is trying really hard, like trying many times, and that his pronunciation is getting better, like that. Then of course in the Q&A session we have a presentation talking about the Gamerize Dictionary briefly. Then the parents are really happy to use it usually.
One thing that Rebecca mentioned also, and I think it's something that we've noticed at our school as well, new students that come in for a trial lesson are usually really on board, and the parents are really into the idea, and they start using it right away. But students that have been coming to your school for a long time are a little bit harder to get on board and actually kind of used to using it. Would you say that the same has been true for you?
Yeah, that's exactly how it is in my school as well. So in my first and second schools in Tokushima, so we've got probably like 200 students, but we got quite number of kind of resistance. Not not like kind of like, oh, I don't want to pay for it. Right. But once we start to we tell them how effective that is, and actually getting like these students this kind of results, right, then they can understand, and they'll be happy to use it.
So when talking to parents that might not sort of understand it fully yet, what do you think are the most useful things to tell them? Is it focusing on results, or, I mean, what what kind of messaging have you found has been useful to get them on board?
I think for that, as I already said, but showing a result of our current students or even like your students in the video will be have been pretty effective. And also, I think I've got a picture, but I've done really fun present project, like a present event. So this is a flyer.
Back a little bit there. Wait, there you go. There we go. We got it.
Okay.
Okay. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. So during, for example, like from December 1st and December 31st, you please turn off your background. Oh yeah, I like to, but it's pretty messy, so I don't want to do it.
Handled like a pro.
Oh, yeah. But thank you so much, Phil. Yeah. Then what was I gonna say? Yeah. So for example, don't be shy. Then should I? Everyone will, turn off.
Phil's not hiding the fact that he's on a train, so.
Yeah, that's brave. Yeah, so for example, like this 1 month, according to the number of the adventures your kids have finished, you get to do a lottery. Then they get a present. For example, what we had is tablet and software for Switch and the wireless earphones, things like that. So pretty, big present for kids. Yeah.
So a pretty exciting event that you've made out of it.
Yeah. It was really exciting and fun. And so it was kind of like a good motivation for them to get started.
Right.
Yeah. So it shouldn't be like an ultimate goal. It's always should be like, being able to communicate should be the ultimate goal. But sometimes you need kind of like a booster to get started, or sometimes they need something really fun and exciting.
Yeah, I mean, events are really great. I mean, I at our school we haven't done as many events in the last couple of years, obviously because of COVID. But I think any kind of event that you can run at a school helps to, that kind of community feel, the relatedness, connectedness of students, and it kind of gives like some variety throughout the year. Something's happening at the school, so that's a really nice idea to kind of run almost like a spelling bee, or or I've seen some people do like reading drives before, where there's like a competition of how many books students read during a period or whatever. But it's certainly a nice idea for an event. Maybe we should try that as well.
Yeah, it was really fun, and I announced who is the winner on Instagram Live, and one kid. I mean, all the kids are very, very excited, but one kid was shouting like, "I can't believe I got it!" So it was really, good feeling even for me to see.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
like,
fun.
wow. Yeah, I can, make them happy like this much. So I was really, yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I remember winning something. I won a kite in a raffle as a child once. And it was like I never thought that winning a raffle was possible.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool.
But it is possible, yeah.
And when you did run the event, did students study a lot of words on it, or?
Yeah. For example, the boy that I mentioned earlier, the mom was really worried about him just, giving up learning English quickly. For example, in his case, he did, I think he learned 200 vocabularies in only 1 month. So that was, great. Yeah, he did play a lot.
Wow. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah,
for us, it's not uncommon to see students study like as many as 500 words in a month.
Oh,
Some of them, since we've started, are well past 1,000, like close to 2,000 words. And it is kind of almost shocking how different their speaking ability is when they have that much vocabulary in behind. That's really cool.
And some parents mentioned that because they play, Gamerize Dictionary, then they kind of stopped watching YouTube and playing some other games. Because, for them it's a game and entertainment, right? Yeah, so they it's it was possible for them to reduce the amount of consuming other kind of like a junk, watching YouTube and
That's an interesting point as well. I would consider using that when talking to parents. Some parents are a little bit concerned about like screen time. And then if you think of an educational app, it might on one level sort of seem like, oh, we're adding to that issue. But then again, if they are spending more time on that and they're getting kind of two birds with one stone, then they're essentially getting less screen time if they are kind of doubling up on the value from that.
Right. And it reduces parents' stress as well, because for them it's just for kids it's just playing game, right? But for parents, kids studying English while playing a game, so they don't have to feel like, oh, they're playing a game again. Over and over. I have to stop them, or it's not anything like that. So they're happy, like, okay, go ahead, play.
If they can hear them speaking and stuff, right?
Right. Yeah. So I think that's a really good part. Well, and I think Teresa said she's leaving, but thank you so much, Teresa. Thank you so much for joining.
Oh, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Take care.
And another a very small thing, but we have homework checking sheet. Where they once they listen to the CD of our course book at home, that they can write a check mark. Then our teachers checks it, and then we made a new column for Gamerize Dictionary, starting from starting from next month. So then they can our students can write the number of adventures they finish on Gamerize, or the number of adventures they clear. Then according to that number, we are going to give them stamps.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's another thing that a couple of other schools that I've spoken to have done, which has been really effective, is really incorporating it into the overall homework program. If, for example, we use RazKids at our school, and we've had trouble a bit with getting students kind of to regularly use it because it wasn't really connected to our homework. But yeah, exactly, like as you say, having a homework file that says, this is one of the things that's, part of the program that you're doing. It really does result in them kind of doing it more consistently and regularly.
Right.
We're probably going to need to wrap up right around there. Thanks a lot for taking the time to talk to us, Junpei. And thanks a lot for bringing us along on your train ride there, Phil. And thanks, Teresa, who's out already. But just to finish off, I mean, we did say at the beginning, if anyone is interested in doing a trial of Gamerize Dictionary, we offer a month free trial at your school. We'll give you access to a dashboard, and we have a lot of different resources that are helpful for onboarding parents, whether it's printouts, letters with your school logo, information to students, videos, blog posts, all of these kinds of things that we can offer. So if you're interested in giving it a try, I think that's the best place to start, is really to kind of see it in action for yourself. Please contact us. I should probably show a screen of that. Hold on. last one over here. You can contact us at, here it is, there we go. The following email. Of course, you can also download the app off of the App Store or Google Play if you want to just check it out like that. But if you want to have a chance to use it for free and you don't want to subscribe through the App Store and you're interested in using it with your school, again, get in touch and we can help you to get a free trial version, even just for yourself, if that's what you like. Yeah, Wayne, do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I think you just did. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah, so we are here. Would love to get those trials going. Or again, if you have more questions, send them to Adam. He is more than happy to dive into your specific situation. And I think that's really what I've seen as the difference maker for a lot of schools, the customization piece. We have the ability to kind of turn on a dime. So it's been important to some schools. So thanks again for everybody attending, and thank you for your interactions.
All right.
Now,
take care, guys.
Thank you.